Welcome back, everyone, to a very special milestone, episode 12 of the Phantom Fuel podcast. I'm RJ, and today we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary of bringing stories, leadership perspectives, safety tips, laughs, and connection to airmen, families, and listeners together everywhere. Over the past year, we've faced many things that are considered good, bad, and even great, including the obvious government shutdown, mental health through the holidays, training cycles, major inspections and exercises, fitness test changes, and the always changing mission demands. But through it all, you've stayed resilient and stayed positive. You have also given us so much support and great feedback to make this podcast better, and we couldn't be more grateful. On this special episode, we packed it larger than any episode we've done all year. Here's what's coming up. We sit down with Chief Hruby, one of the key innovators behind the Nebraska Air National Guard Spark program and the innovation team, and the person who helped launch this very podcast. We'll revisit the highlights of all our episodes and the incredible journey from episode 1 to this very episode, episode 12. We'll take a look back at our guests and debut our secret lightning rounds that we played with them to record for this very episode, pulling together the funniest, fastest, and most surprising answers of the year. We'll also talk about big wins and updates across the Nebraska Air National Guard. And also, before we close, we announced the winner of our $50 Amazon gift card giveaway. So buckle up. This special episode 12 is one of our favorites yet. For our anniversary episode, we wanted to go back to the beginning, to the person who helped make Phantom Fuel possible. Before retiring in September, Chief Master Sergeant Hruby played a major role in building the innovation program here in the Nebraska Air National Guard. She helped stand up the Spark Cell, or the Spark program, I should say, pushed new ideas across the force, and gave this me, a chance to help host and produce a podcast that brings airmen and families together. Not to mention all the folks that have listened all over the world. Yes, we see you, and we appreciate every single one of you. In this interview, Chief Hruby talks innovation, leadership, impact, and yes, how the Phantom Fuel podcast was born. Without further ado, let's have Chief Hruby introduce herself.
The views expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Air Force, Air National Guard, Nebraska Air National Guard, Nebraska National Guard, or any government agency.
Welcome back to the Phantom Fuel podcast. I have the honor and privilege of sitting down with one of our creators, makers of the podcast. If you are a big fan of the podcast and you've been listening to all these different episodes, you've sat down and you've heard Tammy Thompson talk about leadership and mentorship. You talk about Captain Wiki coming in with Gig Eagle. And just last September, we talked to Kathy Anderson and Scott Henderson about the 10-hour challenge. And the one thing that we do have in common with all those interviews and those sit downs that we do was somebody that's never really truly been in the chair of being the questions directed, but having the person that actually does the questions. So this time we're going to bring in the awesome innovator of this podcast, and we're going to talk about innovation, and we're going to talk about how this podcast got started. So welcome as the chair, Chief Hruby. How are you, by the way?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Now,
Feels weird being on this side.
It does, doesn't it? Like when you don't guide the channel or guide the conversation, you're like, okay, where's this going? But we kind of understand. You've done this before, so it's not like it's something new.
No, but it's a little bit different on the pressure side.
Very much so. What I want to do really quick here is we are recording this before you retire.
Yep.
And it's obviously going to air a little bit after you retire. So I kind of want to talk about your career a little bit, get to know you, how you got started. But before I do that, how many years have you been in the military and why did you decide to join in the first place?
So 21 years, 10 months.
21 years. Jeez.
And I intentionally didn't go to 22 years because I am not a fan of October and November drill because you get 1 week off in between, and I love the holiday season. So if I was going to retire, I'm like, it's not worth rounding it up. I'm just going to do 21 years, 10 months.
So what made you decide to do the career path? Because I mean, obviously we've been deployed together. We've done all these random things. You were my first sergeant at one time.
Yep.
How did you go from enlistment to go, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I enlisted. And then ended up obviously 21 years later.
Yeah. So long journey. I would say the reason I joined to begin with is I have a family in public service. And so it's in my blood. And I know I wanted to serve at a really young age. When I think I was in 7th or 8th grade, there was an Army recruiter that came to my sister, and I asked more questions than my sister did.
Yep.
And I was like, this is great. They train you, they feed you, they pay you, like they educate you. What's not to love? And so at a young age, I knew I wanted to serve. And then one of my dad's coworkers redirected me to the Air Guard instead of the Army. So I almost joined the Army. And then got fortunate enough that somebody guided my path to the air side.
I mean, nothing to say bad about the Army.
No, I would have done fine in the Army too.
Yeah, you did good.
But that's how I landed on the air side. But yeah, and I joined at 17. And I just knew I wanted to serve. And then all of the other things that came with it were just the cherry on top, so to speak.
Was there like a family history of like why you joined, or was it like you're following footsteps, or was something you guided your own path to get there?
I had some uncles that served in the Marine Corps. Both my grandfathers were in the military. On my dad's side, my grandfather was post World War II, but was over in Germany around that time. And then my other grandfather was in Korea. So both Army. And then I had a great uncle that was Army. So I had the tier above my family that served. And then, but my dad and his siblings were all in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And at the time, you couldn't become a law enforcement officer till 21. And that was what I thought my career path was going to be. So I'm like, well, I'm going to get experience on the military side so that I have a resume so that I can become a police officer.
Yep. And I'm guessing you enlisted as a cop.
Yep. I didn't want to do anything else. I remember Stuart Stoffern was my recruiter, and he's like, are you sure you don't want to talk about other career fields? I'm like, nope. I want to be a cop. This is what I want to do. And I did that for 9 years.
How did you decide this is the path that you wanted to do? You're in the cop field. You're like, I'm going to apply this to real life. I'm going to use this as a resume. What made you decide to get out of security forces?
Well, I was full-time for a while, combat arms and security. I did both. And, the cop shop is built the foundation of my military career. Like I owe a lot to that squadron.
Yep.
But when I stopped being an AGR, I went to work for the Nebraska State Patrol as a crime analyst. And so that, again, public service, right? I enjoyed investigations and doing analytical work. And that's when I realized like I didn't necessarily want to be a police officer, but I still wanted to support the mission. And I really enjoyed the analysis part. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try for military intelligence. And so then I switched from security to intel because it more aligned with what my civilian career was. And I found a niche. Like I had passion in analyzing and figuring out what our adversaries were going to do next, or just, the geopolitical environment. Those things were just really interesting to me.
So when you go from intel and you're sitting there and you're going, okay, now I want to be a first cert. That's got to be a jump to go, okay, there's going to be more responsibility. I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve the people. If you don't know what a first sergeant is, I'm sure we're going to explain that here in just a second, because there's a lot of people that listen to the podcast that are not just military, they're family, and they're all over the world looking at the statistics anyway. Let us know why you decided to do a first cert, and then what a first sergeant really does.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, when I'm explaining what a first sergeant is to people that have never been exposed to the military, I right or wrong, I say it's kind of like HR on steroids. Because you are just always present and your phone can ring 24/7 and you're there to respond and help people.
Right.
I wanted to be a first sergeant because, again, I have this desire to serve, and I really enjoy helping people, but I also enjoy helping people and guiding them in their career paths, which is just something I've always enjoyed doing. And then helping people find the right fit for them. Because one of the things I learned coming out of security is that you don't have to stay in that career field forever.
No.
Whichever career field you come into.
Yep.
If you, at 17, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And as I got exposed to more things, I realized that I had other passions in other areas and I could still explore those through the military. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that was probably, and I kind of, that guided me on my journey because I didn't stay in one place forever.
Yep.
When I realized I looked for opportunities and when I saw that there was something to move on and it fit into what I considered my strengths, I tried it.
And then when you got into that role, and it's as a first sergeant, you're not just sitting there just saying, okay, I'm going to help these folks with their career, but you're involved with leadership. You're involved with the commanders and all that kind of stuff. So you're guiding their vision as well.
Yep. So as a first sergeant, you're part of a leadership triad. And that triad is the commander, the chief, and the first sergeant. And the commander is really in charge of making sure that the strategic vision is being executed on, but also that they're constantly looking forward and figuring out how the pieces on the board are going to move.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chief is part of operations. And the chief and the first sergeant, they both care about people. Now as a chief, like sometimes you kind of have to take a step back and say, my first sergeant's got this. But they work.
Basically
It's
in
a triad,
tandem.
and they work in tandem.
Yep.
And the best leadership teams are the ones that can figure out how to just have each other's back, but also good communication between the three of them and anticipate moves too. Because once you get to know someone, you can kind of anticipate what that leader needs.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So then as a first sergeant, people are my business.
Yeah.
But also being that liaison between the airman and the commander, and then advising the commander to make sure that the commander is aware of the culture, the pulse of the environment, and the decisions that he or she is going to make, how that might affect the airmen.
Right.
And so I had one commander that always told me, your job is to make sure I don't walk off a cliff.
I haven't heard that phrase, but that makes total sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With that leadership role and making sure that you can you give me an example of what that means about a commander not walking off the cliff?
Sure. Well, first I'll say this. As a first sergeant too, it was the first time I was exposed to more of that strategic picture at that leadership level, which has been a great experience that really set me up for success moving forward. I'm sorry. I know I didn't answer your question.
No,
I'll
you're
get
good.
to it.
You're
But that's another comment I wanted to add. Yeah. So, we might have to come back to that one. I have to think about that. But I would say, here's a good example. All right. So exercises.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where we're running 24-hour ops on exercises and how we are scheduling the manning and our options. The commander is going to say, hey, this is how we're going to conduct business. And he or she would say, all right, how does this impact the people we have?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any holes in how this might play out? What am I not thinking of?
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's like, okay, well, if you've got 10 people and half of them work in Omaha, then it's like, okay, well, now we need to figure out what's lodging will look like, because if they're working 24-hour ops, we don't want them driving back and forth, figure out lodging. So sometimes it's not necessarily preventing them from just, walking off the cliff, but it's also like, what are the things that we're not thinking about that's going to impact the operations that we have to actually go out and achieve.
Yeah, it helps that not having that one person make all the decision. You have, like you said, with the triad, you have all the three of those people coming together and making sure that the right decisions are made.
Yeah. And so the commander will have conversations with, that triad with the chief and the first sergeant, and they're walking through, hey, here are the things I'm thinking about. Here's what we're going to do this drill, or here's how we're going to get ready for deployment, things like that. And then it's a conversation to make sure that we've got all of the bases covered. And we're just thinking about all of the unique situations, because every person has a different story. Every person has different needs. And so making sure that we have those bases covered.
So for those that are thinking about in the military now that you've had many years as a first sergeant, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that's basically thinking about becoming a first sergeant, or is that something that has helped your career go forward?
For those that are thinking about being a first sergeant, I would say make sure you have a passion for people, and you're, especially as a traditional guardsman, because most of our first sergeants are traditional guardsmen, be willing to work hours outside of the duty day.
I mean, with the phone going off 24/7,
right?
If you need something, you're going to have it.
I took calls in between drills all the time. I would visit houses when not great things happened to support our airmen in between drills. Things don't happen between 8 to 4:30 Saturday, Sunday once a month. They happen outside of those hours. And so I spent a lot of time making sure that our people are taken care of, and it's outside of drill weekend. So and it's rewarding.
Right.
Like that time spent is rewarding. Taking care of people is rewarding. So I don't want that to be a hindrance, but I also want people that are willing to do that are the ones that say, yeah, that's the right fit for me, because that's how we get the first sergeants that are going to make sure they're taking care of people.
Yeah, that passion is definitely needed for that role for sure. While you were doing that and you deployed in 2019 as a first sergeant, and you're balancing all the civilian job, I like to kind of lean into that. Like, how did you get into the innovation part of it on your civilian job and also balance all the first sergeant duties that are 24/7?
I switched from being an analyst to working as a product manager for a local software company in 2016. It was software that I used all the time as an analyst, and then it just a good fit. So as a product manager, our job was to build new capabilities within the existing software application that solved problems for users.
Mm-hmm.
And that framework of how you solve problems and not just building what the user thinks they want was really my first introduction to innovation, because innovation is really about what problem are you trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's also about what gain are you trying to get, but most of the time it's what problem are you trying to solve. So that was probably my first introduction to innovation, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Strength finders. So the lead course, I think they still do this. They have everybody that goes to the lead course do the strength finders test. And my top 5 strengths are input, restorative, arranger, harmony, and achiever. And that input is really like I have interest in all of these different topics. And then restorative is I like to fix things.
Yep.
So knowing it, when I look back at my top 5 strengths and where I've landed, I'm like, this just makes sense on why innovation was my jam. I actually went from being a first sergeant into the IG office. And for those of you that may not know this, the IG has 2 roles. They are for complaint resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to the IG. Legally, nobody can stop you going to the IG's office. And the IG is there as a support to, if you have a complaint you want to file.
I mean, it could be something simple or something big. It could be anything.
Yep. And the IG has specific requirements on where they will do an investigation, but they are always there to kind of mitigate and assist that airman.
Mm-hmm.
And the second part is exercises. And that's because we are inspecting to make sure that we are mission ready and capable of performing the things that are assigned to the 155th Wing, and that we can execute on our mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so inspections are to make sure that we can perform.
It makes sense that with the innovation part of it, it's like, I'm here for the people, trying to see what this works and trying to make it better at the end of the day.
Yep. And so I was, as the IG superintendent, that's where I moved from being a first sergeant to the IG superintendent. My focus was on the inspection and exercise side. And so when you find things that process or maybe we're not performing a certain function the right way, it's a write-up, but that's okay, because that's how you know where you can improve.
Yeah, where to grow from.
Yep. And those things are critical to make sure that we have those documented and that we're constantly making sure we're bettering ourselves so that we're capable of performing the mission.
Yep.
And in that, you have continuous process improvement, CPI. And then you're also doing like root cause analysis when you have write-ups to figure out, hey, why did this happen? How do we mitigate this? How do we fix it? What's the process? And so CPI, all of that is just a form of innovation,
right?
Which makes sense why I enjoyed it.
People always say like the innovation is just a buzzword in the military, and I don't agree with that, because at first it was just something that they clinged on to, and then they turned things into something great. And there's so many examples of innovation in the military, even 20, 30 years ago, that they don't even use the word innovation. It's like, oh, this person created this, or they 3D printed some shell for a plane that they don't make anymore, and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't even truly innovation, and then people were just like, oh yeah, that is innovation. So then when you heard the buzzword or the word for innovation for the military, and they decided, let's create our own branch to grow innovation in the military, how did that come about, and how did you take over that role?
Okay. There's some history here.
There's a lot of history.
There's a lot of history here. So let's see if I can check this up a little bit. Okay. Prior to me moving to the IG office when I was a first sergeant. So back in like 2018, the Air Force decided that they were going to push dollars down to all of the guard. It may have been all wings. I'm not 100% sure, but I know the guard wings for sure.
Right.
Got a lump of money that they said, hey, here's some money, go innovate.
Yeah.
And they quickly learned that when you give money and you say, hey, go innovate, and there's no structure in which to innovate in, it doesn't actually happen the way you intend. The money gets spent. Just the money gets spent, right?
Yeah. We have money now.
We have money.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go spend it. And I mean, there was some organized efforts to try to innovate, but the things that were being focused on weren't actually solving a problem.
Right.
It was just, hey, this would be neat. And so when you can't tie, innovation needs to be tied to solving a problem, but also for the military, it needs to be tied to our national defense strategy.
Sounds exactly what you're made for.
To our state strategic plan, to the air state strategic plan, the tags, state strategic plan, because that's our mission. So if we're not innovating in the world to move our mission forward, then we're probably wasting time and money.
Right.
So 2018, and no fault to the people that are doing it, right?
Yeah.
It was an iteration. That was the neat thing about it. That's the neat thing about innovation as a whole, is that every time you try something, you learn and you adapt and you move forward.
Right.
That learning is invaluable.
Yeah.
So we did some things, and then it kind of fizzled out. And then the Air Force said, you know what, this isn't working. We're gonna take the money and we're going to put it up at ArcWorks, which is the reserve, the guards component of AFWorks, which is our innovation think tank.
Yep.
And ArcWorks said, hey, you know what? You actually need to put together a business proposal and submit it to us. And then we're going to divvy out the funds based off of a scoring method.
Instead of just like throwing money down, it's like,
No,
how would you use this money
Yes.
and go from there? Yep.
How are you going to use this money? Are these tied to directives, mission-oriented things? How are you then going to take that concept that you're trying to develop and spread it out to the rest of the force?
Right.
Because the intent of the innovation is to level up our military as a whole, not just one unit.
Right.
And so that was like, hey, we're going to give you some money so you can go test and do something. But the intent is, if you're successful, we're going to push out to the rest of the force.
Right.
So that happened, probably around COVID, right?
Yeah.
Black hole with COVID. But some things happened around that time frame.
So you kind of knew all this kind of stuff going on as you get deployed in 2019. So you're dealing with the first sergeant duties while you're deployed, but also remembering, hey, this is the innovation money. This is what's going on. You're kind of soaking all that stuff in.
I didn't soak that in until later.
Oh.
So as I deployed as a first sergeant in 2019, and then I got, while I was there, I put in for the IG superintendent role, and I got selected. And so when I got back, I moved into IG.
Okay. You took that after the deployment. Got it.
Yeah. So then let's say we'll call it 2021. Lieutenant Colonel Carl Johnson over in maintenance was like, hey, we're going to get the Spark cell up and running. And
So before we do the Spark, is this something Spark wise? Is that something local that we created, or is Spark something that's like Air Force wide?
Air Force wide.
Okay. So explain to me what Spark is for those that don't know what that is.
Yeah. So kind of in the history of, hey, we gave money back in that 2018 timeframe, and the Air Force realized we needed a structure and not just giving out money and saying go and innovate.
Yeah.
So the Spark Cell was the answer to that.
Yeah.
Where there was some guidance given, and they said, hey, Wings, once you establish a Spark Cell, have a charter. And then that was the concentrated effort to put a framework around innovation activities. And then the Spark Cell was the one that would need to submit SIF packages up to AFWorks or ArcWorks. In our case, it's ArcWorks to get funding for projects. And so it's a volunteer group.
Mm-hmm.
It's an additional duty. And their whole goal is to push innovation within their wings.
So to come back to what you were thinking earlier about like that triad of like that first sergeant, that chief, that commander, you're not putting that role under one person under the entire base to say this one person's innovation for the whole base. You're putting together a team
Yep.
that wants to put that extra group together that's volunteer based, that's extra there to say, okay, what does this base really need to innovate, to make things better?
Yep.
And it could be anything and everything, just kind of like that's your brain dump room to kind of go, okay, these are the
I
ideas.
call it the brain trust. But
brain trust.
Yeah, brain trust.
So like you took over. So like, let's go back to now that we know what Spark is. How did you take over that innovation part of it?
Right. So go back into 2021. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson said, "Hey, we're gonna get the Spark cell back up and running," and he took on that initiative. And he was looking for volunteers. Well, I was in the IG office at the time. I'm like, "Hey, I remember 2018 when we tried this stuff. We didn't do a good job of leaning into our traditional airmen that have skills outside of the military that'd be really great for this."
Mm-hmm.
I steal the verbiage from Lieutenant Colonel Torson as our intellectual reserve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. So I raised my hand. We did some working sessions. I remember we did one right before Christmas, and we really were just trying to talk through the framework and how we were going to have a backlog of issues or ideas and how we were going to actually work them. Because we realized as a volunteer group, we had to have subject matter expertise to be able to work some of these ideas that came in, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you have to have people with the right knowledge, the right motivation, and it's outside of the scope of their normal job.
Right.
So there's
And a willing
be-
to do that extra bit too, because I
Yes.
mean, that's the hardest part. Because
Yep.
I mean, you have some areas of the base that does so much from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Like, how do they fit that extra?
Yeah,
in
it's a
there?
lot.
Yeah.
It can be a lot. And so we went through that. And at some point, I remember having a conversation with Lieutenant Colonel Johnson. I'm like, we need somebody that just does this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody that can lead this charge. And so magically, Joint Force Headquarters had a job posting for a chief to say, hey, here's all of the functional areas. You can do anything from A1 to A8, and including special projects. Give us a vision and pitch to us what you are going to solve for the Nebraska Air National Guard.
And for those that don't know what A1 to A8 is, just look it up, because it'll take us like 3 hours to explain what those are. So
There's actually more than an A8, but I think that was just what was on
we'll find
the
a link and
postings.
throw it in the description. You can go find it if you want.
Pretty sure it goes up to 10. But anyway, I put together a strategy, intent letter around innovation. And I said, hey, here's the problem that we have, and here's how I'm going to attack it and solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked my proposal, and they said, hey, yeah, we want that. You're hired.
Yeah.
And so then I came in 2022, late in the year 2022, and my job was to set up an innovation program for the state.
Yeah. So then that is creating that spark to get the people that are to get inspiration for the people that join the spark, to get their ideas, to get like that going again.
Yeah. So when you think of innovation at establishing it at a state level, I'm one person,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a traditional guardsman, but that's more than what we had.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure. Yeah,
making strides. So the first thing, I had an approach. My first approach was to educate, and I wanted to make sure senior leaders understood what innovation meant.
Mm-hmm.
Because you made a comment, hey, innovation's this buzzword. Well, innovation's actually very intentional.
Very.
And there's a framework around innovation. And so I could talk about this for a long time, but
No.
essentially when
That's what we're here for.
when I talk about innovation, it's okay, you have an innovation portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And within your innovation portfolio, you have core innovation, adjacent innovation, and transformational innovation. When people hear innovation, they automatically think transformational innovation. That's where their brain automatically goes.
Yeah.
But as a military, we do core innovation really well. And core innovation is really the process improvement, hey, I have the skills, the subject matter expertise, and the resources to make change.
Mm-hmm.
And so continuous process improvement is part of that core innovation portfolio. And then we think about adjacent innovation, it's taking resources and skills and using them in a new way. And so like Master Sergeant Triplet created the cashless DFAC.
Right.
And he's got some great skills on Power BI, PowerShell, and also, just got some Excel know-how. And so the problem was, hey, we don't want to take cash anymore at the DFAC. How can we do this so that people scan their ID cards and it just gets taken out of their drill check?
So in retrospect, it's kind of like the Spark was the services agency that said, hey, I don't want to do this, take this money. Do we have anybody on base that can help create this program?
I wouldn't say Spark per se, because Spark Cell has a very intentional meaning, right? Because Spark Cell is the entity.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I would say
the general idea or the brain trust that you said that innovation idea came from services, and then who can create this? Who can make this happen?
Yeah, and that happened outside of the Spark Cell too. So innovation, the thing about the Guard is we are innovating all of the time.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's an organized effort underneath the Spark Cell, or it's just things that are happening and they just don't have visibility, or people don't realize it's innovation.
Yeah.
But my whole point behind, hey, there has to be a framework around innovation and understanding what that portfolio is exactly that, right?
Yep.
And so the adjacent innovation, we took an airman that had a unique set of skills and we applied it in a new way to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was outside of his AFSC.
Yep.
And then transformational innovation. You mentioned maintenance and how they 3D printed a part that no longer could be obtained for the jet. I mean, again, not in the AFSC, but all of those things take time, resources, and a willingness to achieve them. And when you get to adjacent and transformational, those things are so hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand, what resource do I need that I don't have right now? How can I get it?
Yeah.
And the military, we have budgetary constraints. So really we're tapping into the people that have outside expertise or a special skill to be able to help do those things.
Yep.
So step one, educate on what innovation is. We have an innovation portfolio, right?
Yep.
Core, adjacent, transformational. Then the next thing is how do you actually execute on innovation? And this is where we talk about our ABCs.
Yep.
So you've got architecture, behavior, and culture. Architecture is, hey, what's our charter? What metrics are we tracking? How are we educating on innovation? What are the tangible things that we're doing to support innovation as a whole?
Right.
And then behavior is, does our leadership advocate for innovation? Are we giving time and space? Do we have a continuous learning environment? Do we understand that iterations are good and that anytime we try something and it doesn't work out, the knowledge that we've gained from that's really important and helpful? And then from a culture standpoint, we as a military organization for a long time are rank driven. We have a hierarchy. And so, your tech sergeants, your master sergeants, your seniors, your chiefs, we are used to what's the mission? What do we need to do? Let's get it done, giving direction, educate our airmen, and then going. Well, this kind of tips it on its head a little bit because we really want our airmen to identify what are the pain points you're experiencing, and then what skill sets do you have that we can lean into and use to solve these problems.
Right.
It's not the same structure that we're used to using.
Yeah, because we're so by the time you get to a tech or higher, you've already been structured to do this particular job a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And now how do you flip that over to do something better or even innovate to do it better?
And it's not even job, right? It's just a mindset shift.
Could be culture, could be anything. Yeah,
could be anything. We want our airmen to solve problems at any level.
Right.
That requires an intentionality for professional growth to give them time and space to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're an airman and you go through basic training, you're disciplined, you're like, I got to follow orders. I got to follow, I'm following the AFIs, the DAFIs. I'm learning my job. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So giving them the opportunity to say, oh, I know how to do this thing on the civilian side, and I see a problem on the military side. I can apply my skills to help solve this problem. We have to allow time and space. And we also have to create an environment where they feel comfortable enough going to their senior leaders and saying, hey, this is a problem. I think I can help solve it. Let's figure this out together.
Might not even, and the leadership might not even know that there's a problem
Right.
because of that.
Right. I mean, anytime a senior leader or anybody hears a problem, sometimes our first reaction is to get defensive.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually our first question should be, tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, why is that painful?
Yeah, explain to me why it's a problem for you, and then I can understand why it's a problem maybe for everybody.
Yeah. Now, their chances are it could just be an educational piece for that airman or that member, and they just need to be put on the right track because they don't have the knowledge that they need to have, and you educate them and they move on their way.
Yeah.
Could also be that there's something that really does need to be addressed, and okay, now we have a pain point. Now we probably have a problem. Let's figure out how we're going to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And giving those airmen the opportunity to do so is a culture. So if we can get those reps in with our airmen, we are growing a culture of innovation that when we send them downrange, when we send them somewhere else, we now have given them the tools in their toolbox to say, oh, this isn't right. I need this capability. How do I do it? How might we do it? And they're not going to shut down. Instead, they're going to say, I'm going to figure this out.
Right.
And that's what we need. That innovative mindset is critical.
And opening that mindset in the innovation, but yet taking away that fear that
Yeah.
you're kind of talking about. Because I mean, like I've been in a while, and I was like, I remember at some point where you're just kind of like, oh, I'm here just to do the job and leave. Well,
And you're afraid to make mistakes.
not just mistakes, but I mean, like afraid to make adjustments because that person has been.
What if I'm wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are certain jobs, certain things where from a safety issue, like mistakes are bad. But this is why we do exercises. It's okay if we don't get it right on an exercise. That intent is to learn and get that rep so that we do it right later.
Right.
Innovation is the same thing. We want iterations. We want reps because you learn more in mistakes than you do with success. I mean, to be honest, that's how you get there.
Right.
Success. I think there's a great graphic of somebody standing at the top of a pyramid for success, and below the pyramid's everything people don't see. And it's stress and failure and all of these things, but that's what gets them there. Innovation is the same. It's iteration.
Yeah.
It's how can we keep testing this? And at the same time, we're giving our airmen experience that's going to pay off in spades.
Yeah. And in my history with being in services, like we used to have like 6 different checklists to check this or check that or whatever. And then, you know, you have somebody that just comes in like a year later, that's brand new, and just go, why do we have 6 checklists? Why can't we just go down to 1 and still be able to get this done? And the proficiency can change
Core
just
innovation.
like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great example of that. And then when you're doing that and then kind of putting in perspective of like creating the spark, you're in charge of the overall innovation of the guard, like those suggestions can not sometimes get up to the leadership of how those are changing or how those are working out.
Yeah. Okay. So step 1 when I came into this job was education, right?
Yeah. That's where we're going.
What is the innovation? What is innovation? Well, okay, it's a framework. How do you innovate? Okay, so our ABCs. And then from there is part of the ABCs is that architecture. So what is the process to get ideas, to work ideas, to get money, to fund them? All of that's part of the architecture for execution on innovation. And so with the Spark Cell, the 155th has an app. On that app, there is an idea submission form.
Yep.
So that's one.
I think it's this actual says Spark, like a Spark
It's a tile.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we talk with the Chief's Council and the First Sergeants, and anytime there's an idea, they do a good job of filtering. But there's things that are out there that I have no idea about. Again, one person,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
One
yeah.
person. And so that Spark Cell, we have ideas that have filtered in, and then when we track it, and then the first question is like, what type of innovation is this? Is it core, adjacent, transformational? Because each one requires a different skill set, different resources, and one's a lot easier to work on than the other.
Yeah.
Core is a lot easier to handle than transformational
Right.
from a time, money, resource standpoint. So then it gets assigned to someone, and then that person, their job is to follow up, talk to the person that submitted the idea, figure out, and it's a vetting process, right? We got to triage because you're going to get ideas that may not be feasible, may not be desirable, may not even be viable.
Yeah.
So there's a process of, hey, what is this idea? Does it support our mission? Is it something that we're spending time on?
Yeah.
Right. And then let's say the answer is yes. And then it's like, okay, then there's tons of research that happens. How can we do this from like a minimum viable product standpoint? Is there something we can do manually to test this out? How might we? And then there's some iteration tests, and then it comes down to, okay, now what happens if we need money?
Right.
And so from my standpoint, at the state level, my job was to help remove barriers to spend money.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot in that process. And I made some mistakes in that process.
I mean, it's
too.
hard. It's hard for that initial part of it anyway, for sure.
Yeah. So anytime you innovate, contracting and finance are your friends. I got told several times, yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I always ask the question, how might we?
Yeah.
And because we've got awesome people, we'd have conversations to write, okay, well, you got to do it this way and you got to do it in the suspense and so on and so forth. As I said,
This is how you get the funds for this section.
I learned a lot. And I have to call out too that the 170th with Project Boxcar, they have been doing innovation a lot longer than me. And they have it figured out. Major Albone is, I think he's a genius, but the stuff that they're doing up there is amazing. So I also know that I have resources that I could reach out to and say, how did you do this? Or, hey, can you help me? And they're there. Lieutenant Colonel Torson's another one, like as part of that Project Boxcar group. So as a state, we're just really lucky to have some of that, again, brain trust. But anyway, so this is the problem with innovation and time is like, I could talk about this forever. So, and then an idea gets worked, right? And most of us we're all volunteers. Some of us are traditionals. And so you work ideas in between drills because the people you need access to aren't always there between drills.
Right. Or they drill different drills too.
They drill different drills.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And as I said, I have things that we tried and it didn't work. And we have other things that we tried and have worked really well.
Yeah. So like when you get to that group and say, okay, I'm going to educate these folks and then get these volunteers to come into the Spark group, how does the communication flow from the very basic airman or anybody that has the idea to the Spark team to go from the Spark team to you then?
I sit on the Spark lab. So the Spark cell is at the state level.
Right.
And then we have Spark labs, which would be the 155th. 170th doesn't have like a formal Spark lab, but they have Project Boxcar. They're
golden.
They're golden.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I know that Chief Nelson, who's the going to be the new innovation chief, who's taking over for me, has a desire to create a Spark lab for Joint Force Headquarters that's joint. And so the tactical things and the ideas go through the Spark lab along with some of the education. And then members of the Spark cell participate in Spark lab to support them in their efforts and kind of coach, guide, and then help them when they need to get to the next level of, hey, how do we get money? Do we want to do something transformational? It requires resources we don't have. How can we do this? Can you help?
Right.
And so that from a process standpoint, that's how we've tried to structure it.
So basically, I've been burying this lead since we started, and I haven't mentioned anything of how this is. And we've probably, I write the introductions and stuff like that. So I've been burying this lead since this whole conversation. So now that you've got all the Spark Lab, Spark Cell set up, how did this podcast start? How did the name come about, and who helped create it and all that?
Oh man, you love asking like lots of questions.
I give you like 4 or 5 and you can pick whatever one you want.
Okay. So let's talk about how the idea of the podcast came to be. It started with a problem, like all good ideas do. And back in 2020, during COVID, there was a stand down and the care team collected a lot of data points. And one of the things that came about it was, hey, we have over 60% of our force are traditional guardsmen, and they wanted to be more connected to the wing in between drills, and they wanted more flow of information about what was happening because they're not full time and they care. And so that was the first thought. I'm like, how can we add another communication? I call it a channel, right? To keep our people more connected.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time we have the 155th has the Air Force Connect app. And while not perfect, it is a really nice means of communication that goes beyond text and email.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, we have that, but how might we add something else that could reach airmen that gives value where they can consume that information on their time? And then how can we also maybe grow our people at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, well, what about a podcast? What about a podcast?
Like a way to open that communication. To
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. And so like, all right, so the more I kind of dived into the problem statement and put together a business proposal, because I'm like, I'm going to submit funds for SIF and we're going to see if we can get podcast equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the first step is, okay, well, I have this concept on paper. It sounds great. And if I can get money for podcast equipment, awesome. I talked to PA before I ever did anything because PA owns if we're going to put it out into the right.
Exactly.
Well, and it's like, if we're going to put it out into the ether, PA has to approve it.
Yep.
And when I spoke to PA, they're like, hey, resources are tight, but if you can make this work, we will support you. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
So we submitted a SIF package to ArcWorks for money, and they're like, yeah, here you go. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And it's like, all right, well, we've got some stuff to figure out because, again, it looks great on paper, but now I got to find the resources and I got to figure out how we're going to pull this off. I do want to mention that before I submitted the package, I had to know like that concept on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't own a podcast. I've never podcasted in my life, but I knew people. So the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office has a podcast called the 902 Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And the host of the podcast is Captain John Vick. Captain John Vick and I were in the Security Forces Squadron back in the 2000s. He got out and then continues to do great things at the Sheriff's Office. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, you do this podcast. I think I'm trying to get one stood up for the Guard. Will you just talk to me?
Yeah. And
so I went in and I spent probably, an hour and a half. And I peppered him with questions. I'm like, okay, well, how do you do this? And he went through, here's the equipment we use. Here's how I do it. And he's a one-man show doing their podcast. And that's not his full-time job.
Right.
His full-time job is doing
Here's
captain
the additional
things.
duties that we're talking about. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And the way he spelled it out, I'm like, look, if you can do this, there's no reason why the Air Guard can't do this.
Right.
And so I had like 3 pages of notes, and that was really the foundation that I used for the SIF package. The equipment that we're currently using now is because it was recommended and it was easy to use and all of the things. So this podcast was created with community support from the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, the 902 Podcast.
Well, we're just going to have him on later.
Oh, he'll probably do the reverse. So it was really great getting that support. And I attribute that help to being able to get funding and equipment to do this. All right. So then let's fast forward. So it's 2023. We get money for podcast equipment, and it's like, all right, now let's figure out how to do this. So we get the equipment, and then I'm like, ooh, I do innovation for the state. How am I going to, I can't be the one to do all this podcast stuff.
Yeah.
And so we created a podcast working group, and we pulled in a whole bunch of folks. You came later. We pulled you in later. We recruited you through another chief, which was a great snag.
Right.
And then so we pulled in recruiting, and we pulled over some first sergeants and Lieutenant Colonel Torson. And the first thing that I think it was Senior Master Sergeant Eddie asked, he's like, well, what do we actually know what our airmen want to hear? And it's like, well, that was a great question.
Yeah.
Let's go get some user feedback.
Right.
And so folks went out. Senior Master Sergeant Eddie went out, talked with airmen, recorded some snippets on phones, again, using technology, asking just some, hey, like, what do you care about? And we learned, our our airmen care about the strategic picture.
Mm-hmm.
Our airmen care about the why. Our airmen want information that's going to add value to their career and things that they're interested in listening to, maybe on their drive time. And that really kind of helped fuel us in the direction of, this is the type of content we need to produce. And so we had that conversation, and then it was like, okay, what's the first podcast? And it really came down to, let's bring someone in from outside to interview, and let's pick a topic that people are familiar with, but we're not really always great at, which was mentorship and coaching. And that's where we started. And then it's like, okay, now we've got the equipment. We need to get the equipment set up. Okay, who knows how to edit audio? And we had a chief that said, hey, I've got this senior NCO. He does this on the side. I'm like, great. Bring him over.
Talking about all the resources that you do outside of the military, bringing it in. We talk about innovation, using those sources.
And so we've got Sergeant Witter was somebody that we also talked to, and then Major Vu. And so we brought that group in, you being one of them, and and that was like, oh my gosh, I remember the first time you're like, the three of you were like, oh, we need this, this, and this. And I almost got chills because I'm like, oh, this is magic.
It's coming together.
It's coming. Yeah. It like, oh, this is working. And then you guys just figured it out. And there's so much work that goes into each and every podcast. But this isn't your AFSC. This is our folks that have hidden talents on the civilian side that we really leaned into. And that's how we got this podcast together. Like, yeah, sure. I put the package together. I got the basics. I found the money. But our airmen that do this outside of the military are the ones that brought it to life.
Yeah, and brought the big picture together of like you said, like there was a problem. How do you solve it? Now we're in the point of actual production. I'm not really sure which episode that this is going to air on.
Well, we've been talking a while too.
Like we're like eight episodes in for sure, 9 episodes in, and then here we are doing all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, we talk a lot. I mean, it's fine. Like most of our podcasts for the last year plus or whatever is going to be about an hour, give or take, and we go through it all. But like then I guess I get two other questions.
We still need to talk about the name, because the name's pretty cool.
I know exactly. That's what my next question is. Like how did the name even come about? Because like I know that there's always some type of like thought process of like, hey, now that we have a podcast, now you have to name it, now you have to brand it, now you have to, how do you push it out there? Thank you, Spotify, by the way. So let's kind of like interject of like where the name came from and what it really truly means.
All right. So the name, I tasked our Joint Force Headquarters PA folk at the time, Sergeant Titus, and I was like, hey, we need a name, and we need something that has some historical or some heritage roots. And so she thought about it, and then she came back and she's like, what about Phantom Fuel? And I'm like, oh, that's a cool name. But Phantom goes back to our mission with the F4 Phantoms. Fuel with the KC-135 tanker, or refueling mission. But when you think of Phantom, so the F4s had a reconnaissance mission, so intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and ISR mission. And we also have another ISR mission up at the 170th. And so with the RC-135s. And so I'm like, well, Phantom Fuel really is, Phantom is a nod to our past and present ISR missions. And fuel is a nod to our refueling mission. And then I love double meanings, right? We have, we're fueling our force. We're fueling our force with knowledge and information. And this slightly a stretch, but I'm going to go with it, is we have it's a reserve force. And they are ready when needed. So they're kind of out in the background. And so it's like our Phantom. So we're our Phantom Fuel. Like we are fueling our guard force. And so, it's like winner.
And if you know anything about DJ equipment, to power some microphones, you need Phantom power.
Oh, I didn't. That's cool too. Yeah, so we're just continuing
there's
to play
a lot
it.
of double meanings.
Yeah. So, so kudos. to our PA. So when we talk about what it took to bring this podcast to life, it was a lot of people with a lot of different ideas and collaboration. And when you're able to pool people together like that, and you are all driving towards the same thing, and you're willing to listen and adapt, magic happens.
Right. And if I remember correctly, if I get the timeline wrong, correct me, but in the initial thought process was 2023. And that was probably, let's just say early, mid-year, give or take.
It was towards the end of the year, but yeah.
So 2023. And then we didn't really produce one until January of 2025. So that just goes to show how long it can take to do that.
Truly. But this goes back to traditional, right? We used almost an entire DSG group to do this.
Right.
It's still impressive in my books.
And I'm very impressed of how it came together. Like, I was lucky enough to be able to leave services in a career that I've been in majority of my career to go to a full-time like guard position to do this. So that's pretty much awesome. But I just want to make sure that we get everything for innovation wise, because I feel like the key point of we talk about like how the podcast has started, where it's at now, how many we're in, all that kind of stuff. But it would never have got to where it is today if it wasn't for that initial innovation, that initial spark money, a spark cell, spark, like labs and all that kind of stuff. So if any of that never happened, because if somebody had this idea of let's innovate in the guard and let them run with their decisions, this wouldn't be here.
Right. Yeah. And look at the people that we pulled in over time to continue to move this forward. It takes a village.
Oh yeah. And then
and we didn't have it figured out. Like, I think that's the other thing too, is people are like, oh, you just had it all figured out. No, we figured it out as we went.
Yeah.
And we had people that were there to support us because they believed in the vision on what we were trying to accomplish. And that was, hey, we want to reach our first term, second term airmen. We want to meet them where they are. We want to provide information that is relevant, easy to digest, and adds value to their daily lives that helps with their military career.
Right. And I've mentioned this in many, many podcasts before, but we're always looking for more hosts, more voices, to people to take over these interviews, to do more of this kind of information. So if you are interested and you are in those roles and you can find the time, or you're passionate to do this, please reach out, because we really truly want to evolve the podcast, not just for this person or that person to do it all the time, but to bring new people in to get those voices. I mean, we've had Sergeant Witter, we've had Sergeant Roach, we've had a few that are in the works right now that are coming up here as well. And then yourself, myself,
Senior Master Sergeant
Eddie. And then obviously Major Vu doesn't want to be on the microphone, but he'll do all the editing, which is fantastic, by the way. He makes me sound way better than what I do. So I give him all the credit for that.
Yeah. And you may say, well, who do I talk to? Well, here's the easy buttons. Talk to your first sergeant, talk to your chief. You can reach out to Chief Nelson, who's the new innovation chief. Your first sergeants and chiefs will hook you up to the right people.
Right. And there is obviously, and if you're listening to the podcast and you're like at the gym or doing whatever, there is a link in the description for suggestions. If you want to be a part of it, there's a tab in there that says, hey, yeah, my name is this person. I want to, co-host and stuff like that too. Reach out, because we'll be more than happy to help you out here. Before we go, we started. Is there anything else that we missed? Because I want to make sure that we got everything. And then I have a couple end questions for you.
I'm gonna flip the script a little bit, because you've been doing this for, let's see, 8 months, 9 months.
Yeah, give or take. Whenever this releases, yeah.
So how do you think the podcast is being received so far?
Well, I try not to just look at analytics, because I've been, for full disclosure, and I haven't really even talked about myself too much on the podcast itself, but I've been doing DJing and radio and TV stations since I was like 15, and I'm not going to tell you my age. You can look it up, figure it out. But I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And based on TV shows and radio shows and all that kind of stuff, they just look at analytics. They just look at like what numbers are this, what numbers are that, or whatever. I try not to look at that. I try to look when I'm around the base. I go to lunch. I talk about hanging out banners and flyers and talk about this. Like, hey, have you listened to this? And they're like, yeah, I have. Like really, like again, not thinking about analytics. You must be like the one of 300 plus, give or take, that have downloaded and listened or whatever the number is by the time this releases. And I was like, okay, so if you're one of those people, what did you get out of it? And they don't just say, yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's nice, just to kind of pass the time. They give information. They give the statistics. They're like, yes, I really enjoy hearing what's coming up in the base, because like I didn't know there was a Father's Day event, or I didn't know that there was a Mother's Day event, or all these type of events. And I was like, oh, so that's actually a section that you actually want us to keep in there. And they're like, yeah, because I was able to do this because I didn't know that was there. And so like the communication was there. So to receive it, I think there's always evolution when you do a podcast, or when you do any type of interview, any type of like marketing, I should say. But I think that as we grow and as more people listen to it, I think the benefit of hopefully the information that we're getting out there, it's hitting hard and it's doing what it's supposed to do. And I'm hoping that eventually we evolve this into somebody else that can eventually take over I do the producing of it. I might write scripts. I might do this or set up interviews and help you do the interviews for other people. But I'm hoping that we can get some interest to say, yes, that's something I really want to do, and maybe transition to somebody else.
Yeah. So I have 3 thoughts. The first is, I love that you collect qualitative and quantitative data, because we can show a numbers perspective. 300 downloads. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
When you look at how many airmen we have on the base between, or collectively as a whole, between the 170th and the 155th and then Joint Force Headquarters, you're reaching probably a third, which if you look at any marketing metrics, that's a solid funnel.
Yeah.
And room for growth, right? Which is great. The second thing is, in a leadership position, we are always looking to build the bench. Who's coming after us? Because we care about continuity. And we need a bench for this podcast because it adds value. Yeah. It's a great communication tool that we can lean into that will probably also evolve over time, that we're going to continue to iterate on. But we need more people that care, that can own it and do those things. So, I mean, you gave a plug, but literally, if you have an interest in podcasting, or just maybe you are going into strategic communication or marketing or any of those things, reach out to the Phantom Fuel podcast, because we would love to have you.
Yeah.
As we build the bench that continues on with this podcast, right?
Because there's always an evolution to something. So there's always somebody that's in the wings to take over for you as you're building something else. So that's what we want to do.
Yeah. And then the third thought was just this drill. Somebody was talking about the podcast, and I had a moment of, oh, yes. It's like, oh, we're doing it. And it was another chief they're going to be bringing on for a podcast probably in the next month or so. Yeah. But Chief Robbins is like, hey, that podcast you did with General Hargens, that was great stuff. I've listened to that several times and I go back to it. Right. And so not only did it add value, but it was something that we have people going back to podcasts and re-listening because they're like, it was good.
Yeah.
It added motivation or just continue to make them think of different things as they're listening to it.
I think even if all of them, like you said, we did like mentorship, leadership, we did Gig Eagle. We've done many of, and I think
strategic vision.
There's strategic vision with like general, like you said. We've had some ones on there for introducing people to the Rwanda bilateral officer. We connected with a online regiment community that helps so many veterans across the entire world, not just the United States or even Nebraska.
Mental health.
There's so many. Yeah. And then mental health. And then we had
spirituality versus religion.
Yeah. So there's so many stuff in there that you can go back, and even this for innovation wise. Like I said, I buried the lead about talking about how the podcast was created, but going back and listening to how innovation is created, how innovation is done. And you're like, oh, how do I innovate? How do I do something for my personal job or my personal life? You just gave, like I said, the ABCs of how to get there, step 1, step 2. Go back and listen to those sections, because those sections are the ones that are going to build and help you and do what you need to do.
Yeah. So if we have any listeners out there that think, oh, I'm not innovative, oh, I'm not creative, I say not true. If you are a person that just likes to solve problems, you can innovate.
Facts.
And it starts with, do you have the tenacity to ask questions, to really understand what the problem is? And then do you have the drive to help fix it or help move it forward? You don't have to have all of the ideas. This is why collaboration and getting together a group of people, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're wrong, right?
You might be the smartest, but you're not the only one in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you lean into collaboration and a group dynamic and finding other people that are interested in solving the same problem as you, you can make a lot of really neat things happen.
That is for sure. Yep. If you have anything else on innovation, I would love to make sure that we get to that. Yep. And then there's other things that we have for the innovation podcast, but I'm like, is there anything that, as you see the vision for the Phantom Fuel podcast, what do you like? I know you flipped the script, but how do you picture this going forward now that you're getting close to retirement and pressing on and leaving that legacy to somebody else?
Well, right now the legacy's in your hands. But I really want to see this as one method that we reach airmen in between drills. And I think that sometimes you have to show a concept or a framework to others for them to build onto it, to come up with new ideas. And so I hope that this podcast fuels that creativity to how we can continue to reach our airmen outside of drills, to make them feel connected, to help them continue to grow professionally, to let them know that their creativity and their drive and mindset are valued, appreciated, and wanted. And so I view this podcast as that catalyst to continue to move those things forward.
That's deep. I mean, like, to be honest with you, I was speechless for a second there, to be honest with you. I mean, like, when you were actually putting people in the power to make those decisions, or even to like have the freedom to do that, I mean, that's evolution in itself. Because like I said, I've been in the military for a long time, and that was never like that for a long time. And then feeling like you can voice your opinion or give your advice about something, that's change in itself.
Yeah. So we want airmen to solve problems at any level. Again, so that if they're in a different environment where they have to meet the mission and make things happen, and they don't have all of the resources they need, they can get creative and figure it out. I mean, that's the power of the Guard.
Right.
And that's actually how the Guard's been innovating for decades, is we know we have to get the mission done. And when you're forced to do something without resources and that pressure's on and you don't have a choice, you get creative and you solve those problems.
Right.
Well, right now we don't necessarily have that pressure. Well, we have the pressure, but I don't think it's felt by everybody. And so we want to create an environment now so that when airmen get into the situation where they have to perform, they've had some reps.
So looking back at that evolution and looking at your career as so many years, what are you looking forward to for retirement, and what are you going to miss in the retirement part of it?
People say this all the time, but the people, like, we have amazing people. Nebraska, I'm biased, but our airmen in the Nebraska Air National Guard are top notch. Work ethic, humility, drive. We get things done, and we get things done well. And I think we always have. And being a part of that type of organization has been, it's been wonderful. And I've made some lifelong friends, and I've deployed, like, I was thinking about this on my drive in this morning. I spoke with a lot of people over this drill, and in some way, the ones that I have the deepest connections with, I've deployed with. And I've deployed with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, you and I deployed together. Chief Nelson and I have deployed together. And you just create strong bonds. I'm going to miss people. I'm going to miss the relationship. I'm going to miss putting on the uniform.
Which is not common for people to say. Like, that's the one thing that they're like, oh, I can actually not have to wear this anymore. But to hear that,
No, I'm going to miss putting on the uniform. I'm going to miss serving our airmen, and I'm going to miss seeing all of the great things that people do on a regular basis because it's inspiring.
Right. And for the record, for everybody that's listening, she's not done with the podcast. I have offered and she's accepted to stay on, and to help out as long as she can. Obviously, her role is going to be changed a little bit because she's not going to be, technically my boss.
Retired.
Yeah, but she'll have that extra word in front of Chief, and then she'll be able to be here too. So she's not going anywhere. She's still going to be a part of the podcast because she loves to help people. So thank you so much for not only creating, not only building, getting us to where we're at today, and saying, I want to help people even if after I retire, I want to continue to keep going with what we're doing. So I truly, truly appreciate it. Any final thoughts? I mean, before you want to go, because I know again, we're filming this before you retire. This will probably be aired after you retire. Any final thoughts you want to give out, even though you're going to be back on the podcast in the future?
Yeah. If you like solving problems and putting those puzzle pieces together and working with others to do it, you're an innovator. Talk with Chief Nelson, talk with Lieutenant Colonel Torson, talk with your first sergeants and your chiefs, and let them know that you're interested in that track, and we'll find some growth opportunities for you.
No, I appreciate that. So thank you so much for doing all the interviews so far. I look forward to future interviews with you, and thank you so much for sitting in this chair and flipping that script a little bit to having the questions directly at you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, let's go back to the studio.
A huge thank you to Chief Hruby for everything she has done. She has truly invented what innovation is here in Nebraska and opened up a whole new way to communicate with everyone. Now let's take a look back. 1 year, 12 episodes, dozens of stories, interviews, laughs, and long nights of editing. We've talked about leadership, stress management, spirituality, readiness, career development, mental health, community connection, and creativity. Lots of creativity. We've covered shutdowns, holidays, exercises, inspections, on location at the open hangar, and everything in between. And through it all, the mission kept going because you did. Our goal has always been to be right here with you, month after month, helping fuel the mission with clarity, support, and real conversations. This year has been so much fun. And now, for the part that we have been keeping secret this entire year. When we got started in late December 2024, we asked ourselves, could we go a year? And if so, what would our yearly show look like? So as a team, we came up with something fun to do with every guest we had on the podcast. We had a fun, quick lightning round of some random questions we came up with and recorded each one. Now for our 1 year anniversary episode, we wanted to share these with you. All right, every guest has faced the Phantom Fuel lightning round. We had 5 questions and it was a great time. We got to ask every single one of our guests one of these 5 questions, and here are their answers. Our round 1, question 1 was, what store do you shop at the most?
Super Saver.
Menards.
I have to say Kroger.
Right now it's Southwest City.
Lowe's.
Super Target.
Probably Walmart.
I'm going to say Costco.
Cultiva.
Target.
I would say that I, as of late, have been shopping way too much at Brooks Brothers to get outfitted for a new civilian job.
That last answer you heard was about Brooks Brothers, and that was from our one and only Captain Winky. Our round 2 was, what skill have you always wanted to learn but still have not?
Woodworking, honestly.
A foreign language.
Playing the guitar.
Playing the piano.
Code well.
To sing.
Flying. How to fly a plane.
How the hell object-oriented programming languages work?
Well, I'd always wanted to skydive. I've always wanted to skydive. Just that thrill and adrenaline rush. But I promised my parents and my wife I wouldn't do stuff like that. But that's the thing I'd always want to do.
Blowing glass. I so want to learn how to blow glass. A couple of years ago, I learned how to forge, which was a super fun thing to learn. And then being around the hot furnaces made me think, oh, I could enjoy blowing glass.
Singing. I am so bad at singing. I am off key. It's terrible. We were listening to a video of a family birthday recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me singing happy birthday so bad. And, singing is something we do fairly frequently in our lives. So maybe I should learn to do that better someday.
And that last answer you heard about singing better, that was our very own Kathy Anderson. Question 3 was, are you a morning person or a night person?
Definitely evening.
Mornings.
Morning.
Absolutely a morning person.
I am not a morning person.
Evening person. I don't try to get me up too early in the morning. I'm going to be dead to the world.
Evening.
Morning.
I'm still a morning person over evenings. Mostly because it's when I do my best work.
I love few things more than a cup of coffee on the porch in the morning.
Mornings, that's where my best thinking is. I love getting up early. I do my daily exercises and stretches, and then I can get going, and I can bang out a memo in like 5 minutes. But if I waited in the evening, it'd be like an hour for me to get that done.
That last answer you heard about being a morning person, getting your work done in the morning, banging out that last memo really quick versus the evening was our very own Scott Henderson. Question 4 was, do you consider yourself a night out or a night in person?
Night in, with the caveat that we love having small groups of people over to our house, whether it's family or friends, and that's a great energy.
Probably night in.
Absolutely night in.
Night out, but home by 10.
I'm a night in person.
Mostly night in.
In. Yeah, I go enough.
I would like to go out. My husband would like to stay in.
Night in person. A good night in is either A, I am going to show my really nerdy side here and play Magic the Gathering, or just, watch a movie or something with some friends, or even just cooking out with friends. I'm not that type of person to go out to bars. My drinking days like that are over.
I'll go with night out because I think connection matters. And, I got really busy in my life, and if you don't nurture your connections with your friends, they don't stay, right? And you need those, and they're very important. So I've been starting to say yes a lot more. And so I'm going to go with out.
And at the end of question number 4, talking about connection matters and being together with folks, a night out, that was Colonel Hess. And our final question, which we had such a great answers, I didn't even cut hardly any of them. What is your favorite holiday and why?
Labor Day, because of its historical origins.
I would say probably Christmas, just because we get to see all of my family. So my kids, my granddaughter, that's my perfect holiday.
So I like Veterans Day, but that's mostly just because I'm interested in the history of Armistice Day and how it's evolved over time, and the way that observances vary between countries, because pretty much everybody who was part of the Entente Alliance during World War I observes a November 11th holiday. But the differences in the way it's observed really, I think, are really functions of like the amount of loss and like societal change that each of those societies experienced during the First World War.
I love Christmas. And I partially love Christmas because I grew up in Montana, and my dad he worked for several months out of the year cutting and selling Christmas trees.
I love Christmas and New Year's. We'll focus on New Year's. Is really the reflection on the last year. It's a time that makes you do this, right? Or it's a real convenient time where you get to reflect on the last year, what went right, what went wrong, be grateful, be thankful, and really, really internalize that, because there is so much to be thankful for.
Oh, hands down, it's got to be Christmas. Like every Christmas, my poor kids, I make them watch Elf. We put up, that Christmas tree goes up as soon as Thanksgiving dinner is done. Black Friday shopping is involved. Absolutely love Christmas. And part of it, though, is because it's so beautiful here in Nebraska. As soon as you get that snow and it's cold outside and I can curl up on the couch and read a book with the fireplace going, it's just, it's just a calming, wonderful time of year. And the smells that go around with it. I love baking. And so making Christmas cookies or pies or whatever, I just absolutely love Christmas time.
Christmas. I absolutely love what Christmas is about, and it's always a great time spent with my family.
Halloween. Halloween has always been one of my favorites because you can dress up as anything. You get permission to scare the living bejesus out of people.
I love it.
And it is all socially normal for one night only.
Oh, Thanksgiving food. Exactly. Yeah, you bring it's a chance to show off your creativity. It's a chance to mix it with traditions. It's a chance to eat and eat and eat and have fun. That's it. Like Thanksgiving, no question.
My favorite holiday is Christmas, and I would say because people's attitudes change. They're in a giving mode, and I don't just mean gift giving, but it's like personalities change. People are happier, they're kinder. It's just a better place to be.
I love going Black Friday shopping because I'm a sucker for a deal. And all of the Christmas Day is great, but I love the activities that lead up to Christmas because I stretch out the fun and the holiday spirit for like 2 months. And now that with my kids, I love creating that holiday spirit for them and seeing their joy. So that's my favorite. Like, hey, let's go look at lights. Let's get hot chocolate. My oldest still doesn't quite like hot chocolate yet. I don't know what's wrong with her. But just those baking. I love doing holiday baking. I typically don't bake at all until like that holiday season. And then, dropping off stuff to people. It's just fun.
And rounding out our last question, talking about building up to Christmas and taking advantage of all the time you can get there. That's our very own Chief Hruby. We would like to take this opportunity to thank every single one of our guests that came onto the podcast throughout the year and be able to have a little bit of fun with them right outside the conversation that we had. We had some really deep conversations, and at the end of each one of them, we had a little bit of fun with the lightning round. So thank you so much for entertaining us and being able to hold on to these all year round to debut for this particular episode. This was so much fun to do all year round, and can't wait to see the plan for season 2 starting the first Thursday in January of 2026. Now let's talk about the great things happening across the Nebraska National Guard. The 155th Air Refueling Wing Turkey Trot 5K. Over November drill, after years of planning, we finally pulled it off. The Turkey Trot 5K had airmen running in and everything from athletic gear to full-on turkey costumes. Energy was high, turnout was awesome, and it was the perfect pre-Thanksgiving calorie burn. We also want to talk about in the Nebraska National Guard new state sponsorship program announcement. Governor Jim Pillen announced that the Nebraska National Guard, alongside the Guam National Guard, has been selected to partner with the Republic of the Marshall Islands under the Department of Defense State Partnership Program. This adds to Nebraska's partnerships with the Czech Republic, Rwanda, and Tanzania. If you have not heard any of those, then you haven't been listening to the podcast. Go back and listen because those are some awesome partnerships. This strengthens Pacific connections that matter more than ever. This is a big win for our Guard, our relationships, and future joint missions. Now let's talk about some safety over December holiday. As you celebrate the holiday, which includes Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, winter solstice, New Year's, and so many others that I cannot pronounce or that I know of, and everything in between, please take care of yourself and those around you. Travel smart, shop safely, check your extension cords, keep real trees watered, don't overload those outlets, and take time to breathe. The holidays can be joyful and stressful. This one, to me, is my favorite. We want every airman and family member entering 2026 happy, safe, and ready. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. We announced a few months ago about our $50 Amazon gift card. And because of the government shutdown, it delayed our November episode. So we extended the giveaway window until November 20th. Thank you to everyone who submitted feedback using our Google feedback form in the show notes, commented on Spotify, and even shared the show. We wrote every name on a slip, tossed them in a hat, mixed them up, and our winner is Lucas. Congratulations. We'll reach out soon to get your mailing address and send you your $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you again to everybody who took the time to listen, help boost the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and wherever you found your podcasts and listened to this very episode. Season 2 will include another giveaway somewhere within the season, so stay tuned and listen. You don't want to miss the episode that kicks it off. Looking back, I cannot believe we hit 12 episodes and cleared, or should I say, we got picked up for a season 2, kicking off every first Thursday of each month, starting January 2026. As we wrap up our 1-year anniversary, I want to thank the people who made season 1 possible. Chief Hruby, Chief Nelson, Major Vu, Major Void, Chief Eddie, Master Sergeant Davlin, and Kevin Hines. And many others who assisted us in many ways, from promoting the podcast by hanging up flyers, sharing the podcast on social media, and so much more. Suggesting edits and helping us book guests. We have a team that produces, edits, listens, and approves this episode every month, so thank you so much. And we don't want to forget to thank our incredible guest hosts, Sergeant Witter, Sergeant Heckman, and Sergeant Roach. And of course, every single guest who shared their time and stories with us throughout the year. You helped us create something meaningful, something for airmen, for families, and for anyone looking to stay informed and connected. Thank you. Once again, we'll be back in 2026 with season 2, sharper, stronger, and ready to bring you even more great content. Until then, take care, stay safe, stay connected, and keep fueling the mission. This has been Phantom Fuel Podcast Season 1, Episode 12, signing off. We'll see you next year.